Admiral Korath had learned one thing in his 20 years of diplomatic service. No plan survived contact with humans. Sensor sweep complete, Admiral. His navigation officer, a methodical Ventrian named Dulm, manipulated the holographic display with practiced efficiency, detecting one vessel at the designated coordinates. Mass signature is... Wait, that can't be right. Korath's secondary eyes focused on the readout, while his primary eyes remained fixed on the viewport. What is that? The vessel is registering at 22 kilometers in length. Dulm's scales rippled with uncertainty, a telltale sign of distress in his species. Width approximately 8 kilometers. The mass displacement suggests it's not hollow construction, it's fully functional throughout. The bridge of the infinite accord fell into the particular silence that precedes professional panic. Korath leaned forward in his command throne. You're telling me the humans brought a mobile habitat to a diplomatic meeting? Admiral, our entire fleet could dock inside that vessel with room to spare. His tactical officer, Commander Thresh, had already pulled up comparative analyses. The Council's largest diplomatic vessel is 400 meters. This is 55 times larger. The math suggests it would require the economic output of an entire solar system just to fuel for a single journey. Korath had negotiated 17 first contacts in his career. He dealt with species that communicated through spores, civilizations that existed partially in different dimensions, and one memorable culture that considered warfare a form of interpretive dance. He thought he'd prepared for anything. Apparently, he'd been wrong. Open a channel. He straightened his ceremonial sash, settling into his most diplomatic posture. Let's see what they have to say for themselves. The view screen flickered, and a human man appeared, sitting, no, lounging, in a command chair that looked like it belonged in someone's living room rather than a warship. He was drinking something from an absurdly large container with a straw and wearing a military uniform that somehow managed to look both official and remarkably casual. Admiral Korath, the human beamed, setting down his drink. Right on time. I'm Admiral Kyle Blackwood of the Human Concordat Naval Service. Welcome to our neck of the woods. Can I just say, your fleet formation is gorgeous. Very symmetrical. Our pilots were taking bets on whether you'd go with the diamond wing or the cascade pattern. Korath's translator processed the words, but the meaning took longer to arrive. You were observing us. Well, yeah. You sent your arrival time down to the second. Would have been rude not to watch. Blackwood gestured casually at something off-screen. Also, your sensor arrays are pretty distinctive. We picked them up about 3 hours ago. Nice tech, by the way. Our engineers are already wondering if we could adapt that configuration for civilian vessels. Admiral Blackwood. Korath decided to ignore the casual admission of advanced sensor capabilities. Perhaps we should address the rather significant elephant in the room. The ship. Yeah, sorry about that. Blackwood didn't look particularly sorry. I know the brief said we'd bring a diplomatic vessel, but the magnificent Endeavour was in port, and honestly, we thought you'd appreciate not having to deal with a crowded meeting room. This baby's got conference halls for days. Your diplomatic vessel, Korath said slowly, is 22 kilometers long. 22.3, actually, but who's counting? Blackwood took another sip of his drink. Look, I know it seems excessive, but we figured if we're joining an intergalactic community, we should probably show up looking like we mean it. First impressions and all that. Commander Thresh leaned toward Korath, his voice low. Admiral, this has to be a psychological tactic. They're trying to intimidate us before negotiations even begin. But Korath was watching Blackwood's body language, the relaxed posture, the genuine enthusiasm in his eyes, the complete absence of strategic positioning. This wasn't intimidation. This was something far more concerning. You're serious, Korath said. You actually consider this an appropriate vessel for diplomatic talks? Appropriate. Blackwood looked genuinely thoughtful. I mean, it's got everything we need. 15 different gravity configurations for specific comfort needs, atmospheric processors that can handle pretty much any breathable gas mixture, and the catering facilities can accommodate 700 different dietary requirements. We even installed a garden deck because our xenobiologist insisted plants help with diplomatic stress. How many crew does this ship require? Korath asked, already dreading the answer. Full complement is about 80,000, but we're running with a skeleton crew today. Only 23,000 aboard. We figured that would be less overwhelming for initial contact. Blackwood paused. Was that not the right call? I can call in the rest if you think we need more reps. Dulm made a sound like a deflating balloon. Korath silenced him with a gesture. Let me understand this correctly. he said. Your skeleton crew is 23,000 individuals, give or take a few hundred. Some of the engineering teams are on shift rotation. Blackwood leaned forward, his expression turning conspiratorial. Between you and me, we probably could have done this with 15,000, but the union insisted on proper staffing ratios. Can't argue with labor regulations. Admiral, Thresh said, his voice tight with stress, our entire diplomatic fleet combined has 8,000 personnel. Blackwood apparently heard this despite the channel supposedly being private. Oh hey, no worries. We're not trying to show you up or anything. This is just how we build things. You should see our cargo haulers. They make the Endeavour look downright modest. Korath felt a headache forming behind his anterior brain ridge. Your cargo haulers are larger than this. Well, sure. You need volume for freight, right? The Endeavour is a warship, so she's optimized for speed and firepower. The big haulers sacrifice maneuverability for carrying capacity. Blackwood brightened. Actually, there's one passing through the system next week if you want to see it. The Big Bertha, she's a real beauty, can haul enough grain to feed a planet for a year. Your warship, Korath repeated, his voice carefully controlled, is optimized for speed. Oh yeah, she's quick. 0.97 light speed in normal space, and she can jump every 6 hours if we push the engines. That's actually slow for the super carrier class, but she makes up for it in staying power. Blackwood gestured vaguely. Plus, the manufacturing facilities on board mean we can replace most damage mid-voyage. Very convenient for long-range deployments. Commander Thresh had pulled up the tactical analysis, his face going through several interesting color changes. Admiral Korath, our sensors are detecting weapons ports across the entire hull. The computer has identified over 40,000 individual battery positions. 42,816, Blackwood corrected cheerfully. But that's including the point defense grid. The main batteries are only about 6,000 emplacements. The rest are mostly for anti-fighter and missile interdiction. Only 6,000, Korath heard himself say. Right, we learned our lesson after the Dauntless incident. You know how it is. Bring too much firepower and everyone gets nervous. Bring too little and you look unprepared. The Endeavour hits that sweet spot of heavily armed, but not compensating for anything. Blackwood finished his drink with a satisfied slurp. So, should we talk about the cultural exchange program? We brought samples, about 60,000 tons of various human items. Food, entertainment, art, technology demonstrations. Really tried to capture the breadth of human civilization. Korath stared at his tactical display. The human vessel sat there, serene and impossible, radiating power signatures that suggested it could probably fight his entire fleet to a standstill while simultaneously hosting a dinner party for dignitaries. Why, he finally asked, why would you possibly build something this excessive? Blackwood supplied helpfully. Because we could, mostly. Also because we figured if we're going to be part of a galactic community, we should probably be able to help out. Humanitarian missions, disaster relief, defense coordination. The Endeavour can serve as a mobile command center, a refugee evacuation vessel, or a hospital ship. She's got the facilities for pretty much any contingency. Or as a weapon of unimaginable destruction, Thresh muttered. Well, yeah, obviously, Blackwood said, apparently hearing this as well. But that's option Z. We've got at least 25 better options we'd try first. Humans are big on options. Korath made a decision, the kind of decision that would either define his career or end it spectacularly. He stood, smoothing his ceremonial robes with 3 of his 6 hands. Admiral Blackwood, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I believe we should proceed with formal diplomatic relations immediately. Perhaps we could tour your vessel while we discuss terms. Absolutely. Fair warning, though, it's about a 15-kilometer walk from the main docking bay to the primary conference hall. We've got transport pods, but some delegates prefer to walk. Says it helps them process the scale of everything. Blackwood stood as well, revealing he was wearing what appeared to be comfortable athletic shoes with his formal uniform. Oh, and one more thing, we're technically still in the shakedown cruise phase. This is the Endeavour's first official diplomatic mission. Shakedown cruise, Korath repeated numbly. Yeah, she's only 3 months out of the shipyard. Still getting all the kinks worked out. You should have seen her 6 weeks ago. Half the doors didn't work right, and the cafeteria on deck 47 kept dispensing coffee at near-boiling temperatures. Total mess, Blackwood smiled. But hey, that's what happens when you rush a build. We really wanted to make this meeting. As Korath prepared to transport over to the human vessel, he composed a mental report to the High Council. They would need to revise every treaty, every defense pact, and every assumption about galactic power structures. The humans hadn't just built a big ship, they'd casually redefined what was possible and then treated it like a minor engineering exercise. Later, standing in what Blackwood called the small conference room, a space that could have housed Korath's entire diplomatic corps with room for a sporting arena, the human admiral offered a genuine smile. You know, Admiral, I think this is going to be the start of a beautiful friendship. We've got a saying back home, go big or go home. He paused. Or in our case, go big and bring home with you. The Endeavour's got residential quarters for 15,000 colonists if we ever need them. Korath looked at the viewport, where his entire fleet was visible as tiny dots against the human vessel's hull. He thought about his 20 years of diplomatic service, his carefully cultivated understanding of galactic politics, and his retirement plan. Admiral Blackwood, he said finally, I believe humanity will fit right in with the Council, assuming we all survive the cultural adjustment. As the ancient Ventrian proverb went, the wise traveler prepares for what lies ahead, the wiser traveler prepares for what they never imagined possible. Korath was beginning to suspect humans had written that proverb without anyone realizing it yet.